I want to say welcome everyone to the WagWorthy Wednesday Yappy Hour. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm really delighted and excited that we're talking to Jen today from Long Haul Trekkers. And if you don't know me, my name is Jane Bernard. I'm the founder of WagWorthy Naturals. We make healthy natural supplements for dogs, and we donate a percentage of our proceeds to senior dog rescue and also to subsidize spay-neuter programs. And hopefully many of you already followed Jen at Long Haul Trekkers, but if not, you will after today. Jen is a trail runner. She's a mountain explorer. She's a great outdoors person. And she says she's a great vegan cook, which is something I'm not so great at. So hopefully you can share a little with us about that too. And she's also a fan of craft beer and dessert, because who doesn't love dessert? And she's dog mom to Sitka, who was adopted from Hood River Adopt-A-Dog. And Jen's blog and Instagram, Long Haul Trekkers, it's full of really great and very creative ideas about dog training, dog nutrition, dog gear, getting outside with your dog. And Jen, I always learn something when I visit your site. And it also has such a happy tone. It just feels like everybody's welcome, and there's lots of opportunity to ask questions and interact. And I really appreciate that about you and your account. So welcome, Jen.
Well, thank you for that really kind introduction. I'm super happy to be here.
You're welcome. Um, Jen, you have such a wealth of knowledge about being outside with your dog. What are some of your favorite outdoor activities to do with Sitka?
Trail running for sure. Although, ironically, I got him in December and I've been injured since then. I'm finally getting over this injury. Plus, with COVID, we haven't been able to trail run, so I haven't really trail run with him that much. But I like what I see. He's really great on the trail. He sticks nearby. He came with this built-in recall somehow. I don't know if his previous owners taught him. I kind of doubt it,
Uh-huh.
but somebody did. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to being able to go on longer distance runs with him. And we had signed up for a 20-mile trail race in Sisters, Oregon. That's dog friendly, but it was canceled and I was injured, so it kind of worked out well, I guess. And then we enjoy going hiking. Um, we'll do day hikes or backpacking trips. Um, and yeah, I bring him to breweries with me. And um, what else? Oh, we were talking before the call about paddleboarding. I'm trying to teach him to get used to the paddleboard so we can go out. And my trouble's been that too many people are at the place where I want to teach him at this lake that's nearby, because it's been really nice here in the Northwest. So everyone's getting out and enjoying the sunshine, which I'm a little dismayed about because I want the boat ramp to myself so I can just train my dog. And he loves the water, so I suspect it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get him to stay on the board at first, but we'll see. Maybe he'll surprise me.
Yeah, that's great. Hopefully you're recovering from your injury.
It seems to be okay. I've been running more than I have in like 5 months, so
You're on your
we'll
way.
see. I'm on
Yeah.
my way.
And so you've
Yeah.
only had Sitka since December, so you're really still getting to know him and working with him. I also want to add, for those of you that don't know, Jen has also traveled internationally, not with Sitka, but with another dog, and done a lot of bike touring with her dog, and um, very adventuresome. We've traveled the world with your dog, which is pretty amazing. So,
Yeah.
these are really challenging times, and many of us have limited access to the things that we normally love to do with our dogs. A lot of places, trails are closed. So what kind of things have you, and now I understand that you've been injured. So what kind of things have you been doing with Sitka during quarantine, to keep yourselves in shape and to take advantage of what is out there?
Yep. We've been doing lots of neighborhood walks. We've been really getting to know the neighborhood and all the nooks and crannies. Um, but we started a training program in March in Portland. So I was supposed to be in Portland for the month of March, and it was canceled about halfway through due to COVID. So I came back and continued virtual classes. So I've been working on training him, and our training really, like, training a dog is pretty means a lot of mundane work, really. So a lot of our walks are literally walking back and forth on the same street in front of the house for 20 minutes.
Well,
And I just published.
and for those of you who don't know, Jen lives in the Seattle area, so she's in a urban-esque or suburban neighborhood.
Suburban.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah. So it's, neighborhood. We're walking down the middle of the street, seeking out things that distract him. So fortunately for me, there's a lot of things that make Sitka react, like people talking, people getting in their cars, delivery trucks, kids on bikes, kids at all, other dogs. I mean, you name it, he gets distracted. So we like I said, we literally walk back and forth sometimes. Sometimes we make it around the block. Sometimes we can do, a mile and a half loop. Sometimes I just hang out in front of the neighbors that are talking, and we walk back and forth in front of them. So we've been doing a lot of that and just really fine tuning his loose leash walking, fine tuning his reactivity or lack of reactivity. We've been working on that. And then we've also been doing a lot of training for outdoor prep. So the paddleboard is one thing we've been working on. I've also been working on him wearing his rec specs goggles for when we do water sports or hike in high altitude or in the snow come winter. So I'm getting him used to those. We've been doing lots of grooming training, like getting him used to nail trims. I took him to a groomer in February, and it was awful. He threw a fit. He bit the sleeve of the groomer. I was just mortified, and so ever since that day, I've been working with him, and now I can cut his nails totally fine. Um,
That's great.
uh,
And we've had a few more people drop on the call, so I just want to let them know
sure.
Jen is an outdoors person, but she just got her dog in December and adopted him from Hood River Adopt-A-Dog. So she's still getting to know him and vice versa. And she's outside of Seattle. So a lot of the outdoor access that you normally have isn't available. So you're busy training and working on things
Yep.
so that when things open up back up, your dog has good manners and recall and all those, and you're developing your partnership, really.
Yeah, we're still getting to know one another, and I'm still learning what different barks mean, or what different growls mean, or what things he'll react to, or learning, what does this posture mean? Like, just really, I'm trying to really learn his language, and I think he's starting to understand mine too. So I think, it's just been kind of building as a team this whole time, which, COVID has kind of been uh, great for dog training, actually, because other dog owners stay away from us, which I really love and I hope continues. Um, and the one downside, I guess, is that I don't like. Ideally I'd go to parks with lots of dogs to work on that reactivity training. But for the most part, I've been really happy because people stay away from us, so I can really focus on him.
That's great. So hopefully, we're headed into the summer season. It's getting warm. We're all getting kind of anxious about getting outside. So hopefully things are loosening up a bit in many places. You said trails are now open in your area. But, for all of us, the ideas that we had for our summer are not quite gonna happen the way we thought they were gonna happen. So I think things are gonna look very different in terms of summer travel plans for the near future. So what kind of ideas and suggestions do you have for us to adventure close to home?
Sure.
And especially,
I
I'm just going to interject one more thing. Like, you know, I'm not going to be going and staying in a hotel somewhere. So I'm thinking both two things, close to home and where can I go camping where there won't be other people around.
Yep. Um, yeah, so I think another benefit to all of this is it's forcing people to get to know where they live. I think so often we ignore the places we that are close to us and venture further out because it's more exciting, or we think that, oh, this park or trail or whatever will always be there, I can go anytime. And now we're kind of being forced to go to those trails. And I think a lot of people, I know for me personally, I've made a lot of really cool discoveries in my own neighborhood. And I think I will do the same, as I kind of stick closer to home. um, as far as camping, I know, so we're really very spoiled out in the West because we have BLM land,
Right.
and you can kind of go and not be around anybody. You can camp wherever you want. Your dog can pretty much be off leash. I mean, that's a place you can go if you're in the West where you likely won't find a lot of people. So that's kind of my go-to. Um, Same thing in the West, and I went to school in New England, but I didn't hike a lot there. But I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities in places like Maine and Vermont and New Hampshire and New York, upstate New York. Um, just look for places that you might not think of that aren't state parks or city parks that have camping. Just look for dispersed camping off of Forest Service roads because those are some of the best spots and times, and they're usually free. There's nobody around. It's really peaceful. They're often by rivers. Um, so I think that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for this summer, and just or even venturing a little further out than you might normally, versus, like, so what I'm saying is, instead of going to your favorite state park with the most popular lake area or wherever you tend to go summer after summer, think a little bit outside of the box to places that you don't normally think about going. I have a friend that moved to Central Washington last year, and so she's taken me to all these places in Central Washington that I never knew, excuse me, I never knew existed, and they're different from the Cascade Mountains, that I'm used to, and it's just a different type of beauty. And it's been really fun because I grew up in Washington and I didn't know any of these places existed. And so I just encourage people to kind of go to those places that people don't think about going, or kind of off the radar,
Hmm.
and go there, because there won't be as many people there. You're going to discover new places that you can go back to that year after year are going to have less people than the more popular destinations. And it's fun to kind of get to know where you live.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. And for those of you out there who do live in the West or even in the East too, you most of the national forests and the BLM lands have websites, so you can actually go on and do some recon um, about those locations and find out what their guidelines are, if they allow dispersed camping, which basically means that you're not staying in a designated campsite per se. It probably won't have running water. It may or may not have a fire ring or a picnic table. So some things to think about when you're camping in those kind of dispersed camping places is you need to bring extra water with you. It's a good idea to bring a shovel so you can bury waste. And also you want to have plenty of extra water. I know here they're not allowing open fires at all. And it's not so much because the fire danger is high, it's because they don't want to take any risks about, having any kind of forest fires. So think about, if you don't have one, purchasing a little stove, or bringing meals that you don't have to cook. You can have a camp stove, but you can't have open fires. So, and your comment about looking for places that you normally wouldn't think of, it's like there are so many primo destinations out there that are top of mind, but this is going to force us to think about, well, what are the less common, or maybe the less well known, or the less uh, that have less cachet. Like everyone thinks about um, those high level sort of A-list places to go, but this is going to force us. There's a couple places here in New Mexico that have been on my list for years, but I haven't actually gone there because there's always someplace more interesting or sexier or more familiar. And so this is forcing me to visit some of those places. So we may have some folks on this call who maybe are going to car camp for the first time, or maybe they've never camped with their dog before. So if you would you give us some kind of background and suggestions about that? And also, that we probably have plenty of seasoned campers on here as well. So, but I bet you have a lot of great ideas for gear and just things to make things a little more comfortable with camping and traveling with your dog.
Yeah. For camping, again, this is a really good time to practice camping. Set up the tent in your living room and sleep in it. I did that. You can try it in your backyard if you want a little more nature. Um, but getting your dog as used to seeing the tent and the gear inside before you go camping, especially if they tend to be more nervous dogs or kind of unsettled in new places. That's a great way to just kind of to get them prepared for these trips that will be coming up, so they don't freak out. Or I know Sitka, I don't I doubt he's been camping. I've slept in a car with him, but I haven't slept outside in a tent with him yet. Um, I have a suspicion he's probably going to he'll bark at sounds.
Yeah.
So just I've been waiting for it to be warm enough in the morning there isn't too much to do, or it's not wet in the morning, to try camping in the backyard to see how he does with night sounds. And then this is a good time to kind of test all your gear. um, see what you like, see what you don't, talk to your friends about what kind of gear they use. And if you're brand new to camping, um, well, I guess social distancing dependent, but I think you can still camp with a friend, social distancing. You can just keep your tents 6 feet apart. But go with a friend that is an expert camper, has camped several times, and just kind of let them show you what they do. And they'll have all the gear. They'll have gear that you don't have. And, ask to borrow gear from friends at first. You don't need to go out and buy everything. Just see what you can borrow at first, and see what you like or what you don't like, or just don't just use what's available to you. And so you can kind of get a feel for if you actually like camping or not. And there's different ways to camp too. You can camp from tent. You can sleep in your car, which I've done a lot of times. There's You can sleep in a hammock. I have not tried that. I don't think it'd be very comfortable for me. But there's different ways to camp. And what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. But as far as gear for your dog for car camping, I always bring an extra day's worth of food just in case whatever happens. You get stranded, your car breaks down, you decide to stay another day, and I measure it out before I leave home. Uh, I bring just one bowl for water and food. It's a silicone Dex's bowl that folds flat. It's like an accordion sort of. just to have less stuff. Um, I also, if you kind of want to give your dog some freedom at camp, but they don't they tend to run off. I love the rough wear not a hitch. It's a tow line that you can string between two trees, and it gives them lots of space to roam around. And yeah, it's really great for, if you want to set up a tent or do cook dinner or whatever, something you don't have to keep your eye on your dog the whole time. Um, for if you're getting a new tent, consider, depending on the size of your dog, consider your dog a person. So I have a 2-person tent right now, and just kind of get one extra person more than you have to accommodate your dog, because you're going to want that space. If you have a smaller dog, you probably can get by on a 1 or 2 person tent. But definitely think about that when you're looking for a tent. Look at the square footage of it to make sure that everyone's going to be sleeping comfortable, because it's already, you're already sleeping in very tight quarters, so having your dog makes it even more tight. And getting one with good ventilation is super important, because
Oh, good
if you have one that
suggestion.
does not, and with 2 or 3 beings breathing, you get quite a lot of moisture in the morning,
Yeah.
and that's not fun.
All right, great. And what did you call the roughwear thing that you put between two trees?
It's a not a hitch, so KNOT.
Okay, KNOT. And is that pretty easy to set up?
Yeah, let's see, I haven't used it in a while. It just has like clamps. You just like tie it around the tree, it has like a hook that you tie around the one end, and then same on the other, and then you just attach it to your dog. Yeah, it takes like 5 minutes, as long as you can find good trees.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, that's a good suggestion about making sure your tent is big enough. My dog is an incredible bed hog. And so, and he also weighs 80 pounds. So he takes up a lot of room in the tent.
Like
Um,
another person.
yeah, yeah. Um, and let's talk a little bit about trail etiquette when hiking with your dogs. Um, I don't know if are you hiking, are you going to be keeping Sitka on a leash when you hike, since he's new to you?
Um, it depends on the trail. We've been working really hard on our recall and our leash etiquette, or our trail etiquette.
Hmm.
And I'm I'm very passionate about this subject, because I have had a lot of run-ins with, unwanted run-ins with dogs on the trail, and I've also been that dog owner that has let my dog go up to people before I knew how inconsiderate that was. And so I get it. You want your dog to be this perfect trail dog, and you want them to come back to you, and you want them to ignore other dogs, and you want them to ignore people. But the truth is, off leash, right? Off leash is a privilege that your dog has to earn, and it takes a lot of work to get there. And if your dog isn't there, then they should not be off leash. And Sitka and I have worked really hard. We work constantly every day on his his obedience, and I know I can trust him off leash. I know that when I call him, he will come to me.
Hmm.
And we have been working with a balanced dog trainer. So we use tools like prong collars and e-collars, and it uses, basically, if you think of dog training as 4 quadrants, there's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment, and balanced training incorporates the whole spectrum through the dog training. And I, I had a dog that was a maniac. Really, she was a very wild dog, and um, she she would disappear in the woods for 10 minutes. She would chase wildlife, and I just was not okay with that. And I had a partner at the time who would let her off leash, and so we kind of had this what do we do with her battle, because she just
She wasn't
she didn't
responsive.
listen. Yeah, she was just, if we were in the woods, like, she could care less about us. And so I was talking to Jane earlier today. I was like, I loved this dog, but I hated her. I hated going hiking with her, hated running with her, I hated taking her anywhere. And I, expressed this in an Instagram post once, and a lot of my friends that I know love their dogs, that I've been following for years, that I've met in person, they're like, have you tried e-collar training her? And I was, surprised to see this, because I once thought, like, oh, e-collars are bad. They're
They're,
abusive.
they're very
Um,
controversial.
they're very controversial. And I just kind of thought, if all these people that I know love their dogs more than anything are trying this tool, then I should look into it. And I did, and I talked to lots of friends that use them, and I talked to trainers from, both Force Free and balance training, and watched lots of videos and read books. And the more I learned, the more I thought that it was the right choice for us, as somebody who trail runs and spends a lot of time hiking and in the wilderness. And I, you know, who's also really wants to be very considerate to other users of the trail. So I never let Sitka or any of my dogs go up to other people without permission. I listen. Basically, when I'm hiking, even if I'm with a friend, Sitka comes first. I'm constantly listening for people ahead of me. I'm listening for animals. If he gets too far ahead, I call him back. If there's a bend in the trail, I call him back. I never let him get too far ahead of me. We pull over to the side if there's people coming. And I'm not, I think this is possible in different methods of training. This is the one that has worked really well for us.
Well, and
And that,
it also sounds like you had a very difficult dog and you had tried a lot of other things before that weren't working. Um,
yeah,
and it's really hard when you're out there hiking and your dog takes off and you don't know where they are or what's happened to them or what kind of trouble they're getting into or
yep,
who they're disrupting. I know for me, one of the things that I try to be really aware of, um, and my dog is, he's pretty good about recall, is when I see somebody who's got their dog on a leash, I know that means that there's a good chance that they have issues. They have challenges with their dog. So when I see that, I'm always make a point of calling Ollie to me and putting him on a leash and making sure to minimize that interaction, because they're probably, if their dog is on a leash, they're struggling with training or reactivity. So I try to be really conscious and conscientious about that, because I know that they're out there with a leash. Now, what I will say is when I'm out there hiking and there are other dogs out there, I try to make sure that I've always got Ollie under control. And I was telling Jen earlier today, my dog must have been traumatized when he was a puppy, because when he sees other dogs on the trail, he comes running to me for reassurance. So that makes it really easy to avoid those interactions, or those negative interactions. But I think it's important to remember when we're out hiking that we're not the only person out there. And it is really important. I mean, dogs are dogs, things happen. But the other thing that I try to do when I encounter somebody else on the trail is I don't stop. If our dogs are sniffing one another, I don't stop, because that's when things escalate. So I usually will greet the person. I'll usually say hello to their dog if their dog comes up to me. And then I keep going. And what I find is, and I usually will say out loud to all the dogs present, I say, everybody be nice. And it's amazing how just those simple words really make a difference in the interaction. And it also tells the other person that's approaching me that I'm aware of my dog and I have control over my dog and I'm paying attention to what's going on with my dog. And that can be really reassuring to the other person on the trail. So, it's just something to think about. Those interactions can be tricky, and we want to make sure that everyone has a positive experience when we're out there hiking. I always carry a leash with me, even when I don't have my dog on the leash, because, there's been instances when I'm hiking in public lands and maybe we come across cattle. And I know that if I'm not paying attention, Ollie absolutely would chase cows, So if I see cows out there, I call them to me, I clip them in. I don't know if you do this, and I'm sorry, I interrupted your train of thought there, but
No.
I always try to have a really high value treat in my pocket so that if there's something out there like a cow, or if there's wildlife, or if there's other dogs that are causing a ruckus, um, I've got a really sexy high value treat with me, and I have a command that I only use in those situations, and I only give him that high value treat in those kind of situations, and that's saved my butt many times. So just some things to think about with trail etiquette. And it's interesting to me to hear you talk about the e-collar and the prong collar, because those aren't things I've ever used. And, there's a lot of negative stigma about out there, but I also know that there are people that use them and use them well. And so can you talk just a little bit about how to make sure that how do you work with those tools to make sure that you're not hurting your dog, that the signals are really clear, because I think sometimes one of the things that happens with our dogs is we know what we want them to do and we think we're communicating that to them, but they might not always understand that.
Right. Yeah, so I would recommend 100% absolutely do not use these tools without the guidance of a professional trainer. You can watch a million videos on YouTube, but you don't want to mess this up. Like, you don't want to use them incorrectly, inadvertently. So there's lots of trainers. You can do board and train. You can send your dog there for a few weeks. You can do private lessons, which is what I did. I know trainers that do virtual classes. So there's a lot of different options depending on your budget and your location. But absolutely do it under the guidance of a trainer.
Okay, thanks. That's good to know, because the last thing you want to do is be shocking your dog and they don't know what you want, you know.
Right.
That,
Yeah. And I
that would
think,
be really scary and could be really damaging.
yep, exactly. And I think the perception is that e-collars you're like electrocuting your dog, or you only use it when you want them to not do something. But the way balance training works, I use it when I want Sitka to sit, when I want him to lie down, when I want him to come, when I want him to not do something, when I want him um, to when I need to get him away from. So I didn't use it in this case because he doesn't have it on, but before the call, I had to take this toy away from him. And it's a food toy, and he doesn't like it when I take toys away from him or food away from him. So I would use the e-collar to call him to me and have him lie down in place. And then I would take his toy away while he's away from it, call him back to his place with the toy gone, give him a treat for complying, and then I'm not putting my hands in his face trying to get his toy while he's in the middle of enjoying it. So it's taking him away from it, and then rewarding him for listening to me. In the beginning, I put him in place, which we can talk about that. That's the best command I've ever used. I've ever taught a dog. It's amazing. So I'll have him in place, and I'll go outside or go into a different room or something for a few minutes. And he used to follow me or try and get up. Or when I first got him, he would jump on, not on the counters, but like sniff around for some food. And now I can leave a room and he'll stay there. I can leave a room for half hour and he'll stay in that place, whether he has the collar on or not.
So he,
And sometimes, like now, if he gets up, like sometimes I'll listen to him. I'll stand outside of the door and listen for the clack clack. And all I have to do is open the door and just look at him and he'll go back. He's like, oh man, she caught me.
cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. So is there anything else you'd like to add or talk about in relation to travel and being outside with our dogs and thinking about adventuring that we haven't covered?
Um, I guess one thing I wanted to add to trail etiquette is the number one thing my dogs, my heart dog, Sora, the one we did the bike tour with, is advocating for your dog. And, she was the dog that I would allow to go up to people and lunge at other dogs and attack other dogs because I so badly wanted her to be this dog, this perfect trail dog. And, you know, it took it took a very embarrassing um, interaction with I was running in a place with her where she wasn't supposed to be off leash, and we were like, I don't know, 15 miles into a run. So I was tired, but of course dogs never get tired. So she had plenty of energy, and we came upon these senior bird watchers that had two dogs with them, one at the beginning of the line and one at the end. And Sora like went straight for this first dog, and you could just hear echo through the whole line. And I was like, oh my god. And I couldn't get her because she went beelining for the next dog, and then you hear this echo again, and they're all getting mad at me, rightfully so. And then this guy's trying to grab Sora, and I'm like, no, don't touch her. It was awful. And it took that situation for me to be like, she's not an off leash dog. Like, I cannot run with her off leash. This is not okay. And sometimes we have to have those moments to learn. But so going back to my thought, that situation taught me how important it is to communicate on behalf of my dog. So we've all had those dog owners that you have the dog sprinting towards you on the trail, and you hear the dog owner in the far away, out of sight. My dog's friendly. That
Right.
doesn't matter. That doesn't matter if your dog is friendly. That's great that your dog is friendly, but mine's not, and I'll always communicate that. And I have learned that even if my dog is leashed, that's not communication enough. Even if I put my body in between my dog and the other dog, that's not communication enough for some people. And sometimes I just have to say things like, my dog will bite yours, or my dog is really mean. Like, you have to say things that are not necessarily true about your dog, or that may be true but sound just really hard things to say about your dog. But sometimes you have to say those things to get the point across to people, so that this other dog does not come near your dog. So you know just communicate for your dog. Your job as your dog's handler is to keep them safe. And sometimes it means you have to say extreme things that don't seem true, or that aren't, like, well, my dog's friendly, but not in certain situations. She doesn't like when you touch this. Just, my dog's not friendly. Like, you don't have to, don't sugarcoat it in those moments. Just, my dog's not friendly. Be really straightforward and protect your dog. Because for so long, I was very timid to say those things to people. I was shy. I felt bad saying these terrible things about my dog, but it wasn't keeping her safe. She was getting into fights, and finally, it took some time where I was like, I just have to say these things to get across to people because they're not getting it.
Yeah. So you need to
So
be an advocate for your dog.
yeah.
Yeah, and take responsibility for them out in the trail. And
Exactly.
your point is really well taken. It's our responsibility to advocate for our dogs. And there are unfortunately a lot of people out there on the trail who aren't quite as savvy. So we just do our best to help them and communicate. And that's that's why what I have found when I encounter people, like I made that comment, that I say, everybody be nice and let's keep moving. And then that's the cue for the other party to do the same with their dog, So there's lots of different ways to do it. Um, Jen, was there anything else that you want to add before we open it up to Q&A?
Um, I don't think so, unless you wanted me to talk a bit more about traveling. We didn't
Oh
talk
yeah,
about that as much.
why don't you touch, I mean, now is kind of I don't think we're going to be traveling very far from home, but it is
Right.
really unique that you flew with your dog overseas, that you know, did all the travel. So why don't you touch base on that? Why don't you touch a little bit on that? Because I think people will find that very interesting.
Yeah. So we flew with Sora from Seattle to Europe, and then from Europe to South America, and South America back to Europe. I mean, to the U.S. So we flew to several continents with her. Um, she was an emotional support animal for my partner at the time. So she was in cabin with us most of the time. She did have to fly in cargo a few times. Um, and I know most people won't probably fly with their dogs. And I, my, my, my blog started because I wanted to just show people that you can do these kind of extreme adventures with your dog. That borders don't have to be a limitation. And I also want to stress that you don't have to go out of the country to have really great adventures with your dog. You can stay at home, which we'll all be practicing soon enough. You can go to Canada very easily with your dog. You can go to Mexico very easily with your dog, if you really want to get that international status for them. But my what I always tell people is it doesn't have to be this grand, elaborate adventure. Just get outside with your dog and go, you know, uh, don't leave your dog at home. There's a lot of things you can do with your dogs all over the place, all over the world. And sometimes it's a lot more difficult when you have your dog. But I have discovered some really amazing places because of the places that restrict dogs. You know, okay, we can't go to the national park. Fine, we'll go to this other park nearby that has far fewer people and the same scenery, and it's free. So there's a lot of opportunities like that that you might not otherwise know about unless you have your dog with you. Um, and as far as staying in hotels, Airbnb is great if you have a dog. Although I get very annoyed with Airbnb sometimes because they tack on so many fees at the end, which I don't like. Um, there's a lot of chains that allow dogs, and they're all over the country. Some are all over the world. So if you have some chain that you like, just stick to that, and it's dog friendly. They'll take care of you. And then there's a lot of small town hotels. I use booking.com a lot to book my travel with the dog. And then another great resource are your tourism boards. So if you are planning a trip to whatever town, contact the tourism board because they know everything about that place. I used to work for a tourism board. They really know everything that you can't find online, that you won't find on TripAdvisor. They will know all the secrets and places you can go. And if they have their own dogs, they'll tell you where to go that the locals go and not the tourists. So use your tourism board if they still exist after this sad time. My tourism board, everyone got laid off, so
Oh,
sad.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't even think to contact the tourism board about traveling. That's a great suggestion.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we ready for questions? So if anyone has questions, what you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand. And to do that, you just need to make sure that you hover your cursor over the screen, click both participants and chat, and then you'll see over on the side there's a white toolbar that comes up, and you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand. Also, I want to let everyone know that I've dropped Jen's blog web address and her Instagram handle into the chat, along with the WagWorthy Naturals, our website and Instagram as well. So if you are, I recommend checking out Jen's blog because she's got lots of great information, reviews about gear, lots of great articles on there. So yeah, Scarlett, do you have a question? You usually do.
Let's see, unmute myself.
Yeah, I just unmuted you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Biggie is a big pit bull, and I'm mortified of putting him on a plane in a crate. What has been your experience? Are they relatively safe? Like, I'm thinking, I've seriously considered, like, I know that they have like private planes, like you can actually go in with people, so it's almost like a Uber that you share, but it's a private plane. Like, I've actually thought about that.
I didn't know that.
To not put him, I would buy him if it was possible a first class seat. Like, I would just put it into my budget of, whatever, to not have him go. And I've never had to travel with a dog. And have put him in cargo. And what is that like? Is it really safe or not?
Yeah, so I think flying with a dog is safe. The problem is we hear in the media all the times that it's not. But dogs and cats and other animals fly every single day. But we don't hear about those stories. So that's the first thing I'll say. The next is do your homework. There are airlines that are better than others when it comes to animals. I know Alaska Airlines is really great. We haven't flown with them. Actually, have we? Maybe we did. It was either Alaska or Frontier. We went to Colorado, but I know for a fact Alaska is really, really good with dogs. They hand you this like card when you get on the plane, and they say, Sitka is waiting for you in cargo. So do your homework and talk to other people that have flown with their dog. There's dog travel Facebook groups, and they'll tell you their experiences on different airlines. Talk to the airline before, like, well ahead of time before your flight. Ask them a million questions. Ask them if the temperature is regulated in the cargo hold. Ask them if the temperature in the holding area is regulated. Ask them what the process is like. Understand as much of the process as you can so that you know what's going on and you can prepare your dog. And the way to prepare your dog is to crate train them. That if they're fine in their crate at home for several hours, they'll be fine in their crate on the plane. And yes, of course, it's going to be scary because they're going to be handled by different people and there's going to be noises. So just make sure that they are, they're comfortable in that crate, that it's a safe space for them. Different airlines have different regulations of whether they want you to tape food to the crate or water. So just make sure that you know what those guidelines are. And then when you do fly, tell everyone you see involved with that airline that you have a dog on the plane. So tell the staff when you check in, tell the staff at the gate, tell the pilot if you see them, tell all of the flight attendants, tell everyone your dog is on that plane so that they know in case something, goes wrong and I don't know, the heat is not working or something. And then with layovers, depending on where you're planning to go, I think we flew with Sora. We did a 12-hour flight, which is kind of like our max amount of time that we wanted her in there because, you know, they can't go to the bathroom. Some airlines during a layover will take the dog out to go potty and give them some food and water. So just like I have a blog post of questions to ask before you fly with the dog. So just ask all those questions, do your homework, talk to people, but know that most of the time it is safe to fly with the dog. So the media make us believe otherwise, but it's, you know, people do it all the time.
You know, it's been quite a few years, but I did once, you know, I have flown with a dog several times, and I always put a big note on several sides of the crate with the dog's name, uh, you know, please say hello to him. He's very friendly. He likes hearing his name. And I actually once, when that happened, when I got to the destination, someone had written a note on top of my note saying like, what a sweet dog, or,
Aw.
you know, like they acknowledged that, which was really great. And I did exactly what you said, Jen. I told everyone, and the stewardess made a point of letting me know when the dog was loaded onto the plane. And I did give him just a very, very light, you know, sedative. I didn't want him to not be awake, but I didn't want him to be terrified. So that's what I chose to do. And I think, you know, your point about doing your homework is so spot on, and it's great that you have those questions because it is scary. It is an unknown.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, like I'm mortified of, you know.
He's your
uh,
baby.
yeah, and he's like, I mean, when he's had like, you know, surgery before or something, and they have to put him like in the like he's fine in a crate, but he's very spoiled. So if he doesn't see me, like he'll go, like he'll serenade the staff, you know. But he just wants. They tell me like as soon as somebody comes near him, he stops and he's like, "Yeah, stay here with me." So he just likes people. And I did want to ask you real quick about, you said car camping. Like, what is that?
so
And how is
that
it done? Because when I think my car can't go off road, I mean, it's more of like a sportier car, you know. So um, I'm thinking I would be in a parking lot if I was in my car.
So car camping can mean two things really. The most common definition is you go to a state park or you drive up to wherever you're camping and you have your car there where your tent is. So the benefit is you can bring a lot more stuff than you actually need, which is what I always do. I always way overpack when I go car camping versus when you go backpacking, you have to really consider what you're bringing because you are carrying that stuff. And then the other definition is you are sleeping in your car, which means you also have to be a bit more considerate of space because all that stuff you're bringing has to go somewhere so that you can sleep. But yeah, car camping usually is you drive up somewhere, set up your tent outside of your car, and all the stuff is in your car.
And Scarlett, there are a lot of places that you can go and car camp that don't involve a lot of off-road, intense off-road driving. You know, it might mean you're camping off of a dirt road somewhere or an established campground or in a, you know, a park. I'm going to stay away from established campgrounds this summer and look for more what Jen referred to as dispersed camping. But, you know, there are plenty of campgrounds that I'm sure plenty of people will camp at this summer. So it just depends on what your comfort level is.
Yeah, like I like the idea of I have a backyard, so of like putting a tent and have him, you know, getting used to, and he's really great. As long as he learns and he gets used to stuff, he's fine. My biggest, I think, concern with, especially, you know, being in Florida is that he gets hot. He overheats. So
And that's a danger.
and even today, like, I mean, I'm working from home, but you know, we'll go outside like at lunch and 10, 15 minutes, like he wanted to lay out and I let him. And then he's like huffing and puffing and he's like, okay, peace out. And he comes by the door and when he goes in and he just lays down on the floor, because, and I could tell he's hot. So there are times where I have wanted I've wanted to take him out, but I know that between the car ride, getting to, let's say, like the beach, like he's never seen the beach, but I really want him to, but I need it to be cold.
Yeah.
I think if I took him, I mean, he'd be just passed out in 5 minutes. It's so intense, and he's black. So I do have like the rough wear, like the
Cooling vest.
Cooling vest.
Cooling vest, and that's wonderful. But I know that I can't keep him out for too long, and so then kind of I'd love to go camping, but then I'm like, he's high maintenance.
Well, the other thing is look to camp in the shoulder seasons, instead of in the middle of summer. And also many places that you'll go camping will have a lot of shade. So that, you just keep him out of the sun. But I would say, further where we live, there's plenty of places to go because you can go high elevation in the summertime. And so it's cooler. But that's something to be really concerned about because I'm sure heat stroke in dogs is a serious thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sometimes I see people by like downtown Tampa, like by the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk is, it's like 2 miles, or even on Bayshore, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tampa, it's like the longest sidewalk in the US. It's like 10, it's really long. It's like something crazy, like 5 miles or 10 miles. It's like really long. And it's not shade, it's by the bay, and people walk their dogs, and I'm just like, I'm in my car driving because it's scenic, but I really see a lot of people not being considerate of their dogs. Like they're walking, it's like, great, you're wearing sneakers, your dog has paws, let's tell people to put the back of their hand on the concrete.
Right.
If you can't stand it, then your dog can't either.
Right.
But yeah, and they, I don't see, like when I go out with him, even for short things, I have a backpack with water. I have his first aid kit. I have everything.
You're prepared.
I'm prepared for like everything. There's extra treats. There's high value. There's all this stuff, and I look like the mom with like the diaper bag, with all the stuff.
That's
but I want to make sure that he has everything he needs.
Yeah. Is there any other questions before we sign off? You can go ahead and unmute yourself if you've got any questions. And I don't see any other questions, and I don't see any in the chat. So I just want to say, Jen, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some ideas for getting outside and staying safe. There were I'm social distancing with my dog. It is possible that the virus could get on your dog's fur, but there also was recently a case, I think it was somewhere in the Midwest, where a dog actually got sick and did test positive for COVID. So as we are starting to think about, venturing forth and getting outside, I think that's something you just want to take into consideration. I'm doing my best to minimize any dog encounters that we have on the trail. So you'll just do what feels comfortable to you, but it's something to keep in mind. Jen, again, thank you so much for joining us, and for everyone that's out there today. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, we do these calls and interview someone on some different topic that's dog related. So it's conversations about all things dog. And I started doing this once the quarantine began with COVID because it just felt a little bit lonely. And so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. It's really nice to have conversation and connect with like-minded people and have a chance to share some time together and share some conversation. So we are really all in this together. Please, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy. And Jen, thank you again. And I'm going to encourage everyone to go and visit Jen's Instagram or blog. I dropped it into the chat, so you have the address, but it's longhaultrekkers.com is the blog, and the Instagram is at longhaultrekkers.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for joining. I hope you guys get out this summer and try camping with your dog, and feel free to message me on Instagram or Facebook or on my blog. You know, always happy to answer questions. So
Thank you. All right, everybody, have a great evening and hope to see you next Wednesday. Take care.
bye.
Bye-bye.